Vintage inspired military pieces are some of my favourites. The original pieces would set you back about the same as a kidney on the black market, but with the insurgence of micro brands into the market, it means that we can pick up pieces inspired by these watches for a much more reasonable price. One of my favourite brands doing this, and probably one of the best to do this at the moment, is Praesidus. I've reviewed a few of their watches now, and I am always really impressed by the quality for the price. The H-75 Chronograph that I'm reviewing today, for instance, will set you back less than $250. And for that money, you are getting a lot of watch. My name's Jason, I'm your watch guy today. Let's get into it. This watch is inspired by those issued to Italian helicopter pilots in the 1970s. Watchmakers such as Zenith, Breitling and Leonidas were all involved in creating these watches, and you can definitely see the inspiration that Praesidus have taken from them. From the bicompax display to the matte effect dial and bezel insert, this one screams vintage military to me. When brands want to create these pieces, they have a spec sheet supplied by the military, and they have to meet all of those specifications in order to be considered one of the issued pieces. Praesidus have brought that requirement into the modern day with 100 meters of water resistance and a mecha quartz movement. The 38mm casing definitely gives a more vintage feel whilst on wrist, especially for a chronograph. The domed acrylic crystal adds to the height of the watch, but this still comes in just over 11mm, which in my opinion works perfectly for a watch that you want to wear on a daily basis. You can definitely see that it's a more compact piece overall, and that comes from that 45mm lug to lug. I do enjoy a smaller case profile, especially when I'm wearing a watch on a daily basis, but this one also packs in plenty of details. I really enjoy the lugs to this piece, and that's not something that I usually compliment, but the slight turning that is highlighted by a high polish on the outer edge and a brushed finish on the inner edge really does make them look very premium. The piston style pushers are absolute classics throughout most aviator chronographs, and these ones frame that larger diameter crown, which really makes a presence for itself. It has a really good level of grip. Even though we have 100 meters of water resistance, this is still a pull push crown. The case back, on the other hand, is screwed into the case. It's decorated with the usual military issue script, and that perfectly fits this vintage military style. The bezel is a 120 click unidirectional bezel, and it has very minimal play to it. As I've already mentioned, that matte effect insert with the silver highlights for the numerals plays very well into that dial and works well with the texture. On top of that, the grip is really easy to use, really easy to get a hold of, and that comes from that more gear-like shaping to it. This watch would not be complete without a domed crystal, and that's exactly what they've used. It may be acrylic, which doesn't fit everyone's ideals. However, it definitely fits the vintage military aesthetic of the watch. The dial has fantastic levels of depth to it, and you can see that they really put the effort into this one. From the lowered subdials to the main dial to the raised indices, it all looks so brilliant. Throughout the dial, we have an aged effect lume that is to the numerals and the handset, and really does play in to that more aged look of the watch. Definitely giving a look of one of these vintage pieces when you pick them up in the modern day. However, I doubt they'd look this crisp. The numerals are very legible throughout. You cannot mistake these ones. And with that raised effect, it definitely gives a distinction to the watch overall, as well as playing into the aviator style of the piece. The option of the handset plays perfectly into this recreation of the original pieces using the same style. The 24-hour hand to the right of the piece has an arrowhead tip, and that distinguishes it from the chronograph on the other side. The main handset has a sword style to it, but it is very bold and very legible, and it's matched up to that chronograph hand, which has probably the biggest arrowhead tip that I have seen on a watch. You definitely can't mistake this one, and you may think that it's a very elaborate design note. However, it's also very functional, because it means that you can easily tell the difference between that and the other hands, which is imperative when using that timer function. The Praesidus logo is printed to the 12 o'clock, and it's very reminiscent of the Leonidas style from what I've seen. The loom signature is absolutely fantastic, especially when you take into consideration the price of this piece and the fact that they have used an aged loom signature. That usually means less visibility, but not on this piece. It's absolutely solid. It's nice to see that they haven't skimped out on any of the details throughout the watch, and that includes this loom shot. With the dimensions of this casing, the fit on my wrist is fantastic. Even when you don't take into consideration my wrist size, I've had friends try this one on and other people, and they've all commented on how nicely it fits to wrist and how much of a comfortable piece it is to wear. The sand effect leather band conforms to the wrist really well, and it ensures that that case can really hug the angles of your wrist and provide you with a perfect everyday wear. I think that this is a pretty hard piece to criticize. It's well priced, it's well finished throughout. The details add another level to it, and the fact that it follows that original military spec just adds another tier to the piece. I found this to be the perfect everyday tool piece companion whilst I've had it on wrist. But even with that title, it still falls into that budget collector's price range. If I had to give you some notes for improvements, I know that a lot of people would prefer a sapphire crystal. Personally, I don't really mind because this follows that original spec, and the acrylic crystal is very much fitting to the era that they are trying to recreate. I know it's a quartz movement and that's not to everyone's liking, but personally, when you take into account the price and the benefits that quartz movement has, especially this mecha quartz movement, again, I'd give them a pass. But finally, the only singular moan that I genuinely have for this piece is that it has two crown positions. Now, we don't have a date function here, so that ghost position is definitely going to irk a few people. Personally, I can get past it because once it's set, it's set. But I know some of the more anal collectors will have an issue with that. Opting for a different caliber would have eliminated that problem. Personally, I can get past all of those very easily because of the quality of this watch. And honestly, I absolutely love what Praesidus do and what they bring to the market. In their vintage military niche, they are really recreating some fantastic pieces that most of us have actually forgotten about and bringing a new life into that sector of the market. I think it's absolutely fantastic, especially considering that they still stick to the budget pricing. Thanks for watching today, guys. I really do appreciate it. Let me know what you think of this piece in the comments. I have another watch from Praesidus coming up for review very shortly, and I think it's one that you guys are going to love. If you were interested in this watch or any of their pieces, they are linked in the description below. Go and show them some love. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.